and give our President, Bill Clinton, a good Texas welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Henry Cuellar. Thank you for supporting Hillary. You guys sit down. Relax. I want to say a few words and then maybe just open the floor to questions. I want to thank the Mayor, Judge Miller. Thank you for being here. We just were downtown opening Hillary's headquarters. We had a good crowd down there. I want to thank all of you for being here, for the support that I have received from this part of Texas. When I was elected president twice, I thank you very much. And thank you for being here for Hillary. I want to say just a couple of words by way of introduction. This election is occurring at a very important time for our country. We have had serious economic problems for some years now. And they're easy enough to describe by comparing these 7 years to the 8 years that were before that. When I was president, we had 22.7 million new jobs in America. Now we've had 5 million. We had almost 8 million people moving from poverty into the middle class. Now 5 million people moving from the middle class back into poverty. It's not hard to figure out why. The average family incomes, the ones in the middle, rose $6,000 in the 90s, and after inflation, they dropped $1,000 during President Bush's term in office. Meanwhile, the cost of health care has doubled, the cost of gasoline's gone up, the cost of food's gone up, primarily because the cost of energy's gone up. The cost of college education has exploded. So most people think we are already in a recession because they don't have any money at the end of the month. Would you agree with that? And the new jobs that have been created in America, on balance, pay about 20% less than the jobs which have been lost. So this has created a massive economic crunch for middle-class Americans and for people trying to work their way into the middle class. It's harder. So that you've got all these economic problems. And then we have problems around the world. More than half the people seem to be mad at us at a time when there's nearly no problem we can solve on our own. Part of it is they were mad that we went into Iraq before the weapons inspectors were allowed to finish their jobs. But nobody wants Iraq to fail now. They just know it's time for us to, at least Hillary believes, and I agree, that it's time for us to end our military involvement there and bring our troops home as quick as we can safely. We've got a security problem in America, occasioned by the fact that we've been in Iraq longer than we were in World War II. And our young soldiers are often serving longer terms, more deployments than in World War II. And there are 3 problems with this Iraq issue. Number 1 is the military has performed magnificently there and has done everything they've been asked to do. They replaced Saddam, we've got a constitution, they got a new government. They've had time to train police and military people and to let their government get up and running. But if we maintain an indefinite commitment, which is what Senator McCain's advocated, the man that Hillary very much admires. They're friends, they've done things together, but he says we may have to stay there 100 years. Now, let me make the counter argument here. We know what the problem is in Iraq, and it's all political. That is, they got to decide how to split the oil money. If we had that much oil money, we might have trouble deciding how to split it too. They have to decide how to divide the oil, and they have to decide how to share political power. These are hard decisions. If they think we're going to stay there forever and a day, they have no incentive to make it. So, meanwhile, the more of our soldiers get killed, more of them get wounded, more of them die, and it costs you $120 billion a year. That's more than it would take to provide health insurance for everybody. So, if we stay there, we're not doing them any favors. I mean, consider your own side. Suppose your neighbor's house burned down, and your neighbor had no place to go. Well, you'd take your neighbor in, wouldn't you? Even if you didn't have a guest room, if they had to sleep on the couch, you wouldn't think a thing about it. Everybody here, you just take your neighbor in. And if they had to stay a month, it'd be fine. If they had to stay 6 months, you'd let them stay. But if they're there after 5 years still sleeping on your couch, what does that tell you? It's not about the house burning down anymore. That's the situation we find ourselves in Iraq. We need to, for their own future, to give them any chance, they're going to have to make these decisions. Secondly, we have to do it for the welfare of the American military. In every respect, the American military is less ready than it was the day I left office. We really tried to modernize it, get ready for the 21st century, leave it in good shape. We have used the Army, the Marine Corps, the National Guard, and the reserves in Iraq. Everybody is deployed in Iraq, Afghanistan, somewhere else in the world, or on rotation. Many people have had massive deployments. I have a college roommate who was in the Army in Vietnam, whose son is an Army Special Forces sergeant doing his 5th tour in one of the theaters. He's been mostly in Afghanistan, but the point is, we have deployed and deployed and deployed. And it's gotten so bad that we have been for nearly a year now training Navy reservists and even some regular Navy personnel in Army infantry tactics so that they can be our reserve force. And we're so short of people that now the Navy reservists are being deployed to the Iraq theater to serve with the Army. So our military is important to us, and we have to rebuild it. We also have to take care of these veterans that are coming home. And we cannot do the disgraceful job this country does. When Hillary tells me, you know, I think I do a pretty good job of presenting her position, but the one thing she asked me to say to everybody is, at every speech, is we cannot save the whole $120 billion a year we're now spending in Iraq, because a lot of it is going to have, not a lot, you know, significant amount is going to have to go to taking care of these veterans. We will not disgrace this country the way we did after Vietnam and leave these people high and dry. A bunch of the homeless people, a significant percentage of the homeless people in America today are Vietnam-era veterans who had their generation's version of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And this country was not there for them. They didn't pick the war, they didn't pick the policy, they served when they were asked to, and we owe them better than they got, and we can never do that again. We can never allow that to stain this country's legacy again. And so, that's another reason, though, that we need to bring our troop levels down there in Iraq, because we have a problem that will not, it probably won't be a big issue in this election, but it's a big issue to her because she's on the Armed Services Committee. She represents New York, which is the home of the 10th Mountain Division, one of the most deployed parts of the United States Army. And she sees this. But there are thousands and thousands of your fellow Americans who have been wounded there, who in any previous war would have died. But because of advances in battlefield medicine, they survived. That's the good news. The bad news is that many of them have injuries that we don't even know how to treat yet. So they have to be given the care and support they need. If they have post-traumatic stress syndrome, they've got to get mental health care, and they have to have veterans homes to live in if they need supporting services and access to education, training, and job support. We've got to do the right thing here. But it's a major problem that will only grow larger if we continue the present course. The other day, I'll just give you one example. The other day, Hillary came home, I guess it's been a couple of months ago now. She had a day off from the campaign. She went to Walter Reed Hospital to visit the troops that were wounded there. And she met this impressive young Army lieutenant who was having his right arm fitted for a prosthesis. He lost his right arm below the elbow in one of these explosive devices. And he was great. He said, "Senator, don't worry about me. I went to West Point. I knew what the risks were. I signed on. I was proud to serve. And my body is in a lot better shape than most people. But he said, I need to know where I can go to get my brain back." And he had a very good conversation with her. But the connections in his brain that allowed him to remember one thing after another were somehow severed in that explosion. So every time this guy goes outside the house, his wife has to write down a list of everything he has to do and how to get back home. And there are thousands of people in this situation, and almost all the injuries are different. That is, they lost some different part of their normal functioning.